Welcome to the Winning in Edmonton podcast, episode 2. We're a show that celebrates local business and entrepreneurship by interviewing the top business people in Edmonton. We're going to find out exactly what they did to become successful and learn powerful lessons from their successes and challenges that they encountered along the way. And we're going to then incorporate all those lessons into our own businesses and lives. Join me today as we have a very special guest. She's the co-founder of Donya's Ukraine's Kitchen. Jorgia, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So excited to have you here. So I'm so excited to get into your story, Jorgia. In my opinion, it's the epitome of what entrepreneurship is. The way you started your company, you know, it's just a testament to creativity and problem solving and all the attributes that people generally attribute to entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
So I'd love to maybe just start from the very beginning. Maybe just tell everyone a little bit about what you do and what Donya's is.
Yeah, for sure. So Donya Ukraine's Kitchen is the first kitchen in Canada where all the cooks are newcomers who left the war in Ukraine. And we're very non-traditional in the way we kind of started. So back when the war broke out, over 3 years ago now, we just kind of wanted to help. And previously I was working in fund development, and so was my mom. And we had a friend going to Poland to get his sister. And so he was collecting donations to bring because all of these people were coming with just one suitcase. And if you look around your house, it's a lot of things that you have to replace. And so we had some leftover stuff after he left. There's only so many suitcases that he could take. And we're like, we'll do a little pop-up of a free store was the whole premise. And that you could shop for what you wanted and what you needed out of donated items and then take them at no cost. So my fiance was managing a building at a time, and he had an open unit, a yoga studio. And I was like, hey, can we just use it just for a couple weekends? And he's like, yeah, I don't see why not. And a couple weekends turned into like almost a year because the demand just like kept coming. So on both ends of things. So newcomers kept coming in. At our peak, we were serving 400 families a week.
Wow.
And we were like the busiest spot on 104th Street. But then also Canadians kept donating. They would keep coming with truckloads of stuff to donate, new and used. So it was really cool. The newcomers who would come to shop, they returned as volunteers because they're like, wow, all these people are helping us. We also want to help. And also like it gave them a community and a sense of something to do during a really hard time. So, sorry, this is like very like long-winded way.
That's
I promise
okay.
I'm getting there.
We have time. We have time. Yeah.
So when the Canadians would drop things off, they would say, oh, you guys should make perogies. Like we love perogies here in Edmonton. We just love them. And you guys would make such good perogies. So the volunteers came to us. And again, this is very much just a crisis response at the time. And they're like, you know, these Canadians keep asking us for food. We should try it maybe. And we had no idea about what any of it looked like. We opened a website. We had 18 online orders. And then after we took the orders, found out we needed a commercial kitchen. So we're like, so I was bartending part-time at Cook County, and I called them up and I was like, super weird request, but we don't need the kitchen till the evening. Could we come in the morning and use your guys' kitchen to make pierogies?
Wow.
And they're like, yeah, I don't see why not. So we came in.
Shout out to them for letting you do that so early on. That's huge. Wow.
It was awesome. And also I felt bad because like the chef came in and he had been there till like 3 a.m. the night before. And then he had to come in at like 8 a.m. We're like, hey. So yeah, a bunch of us came in. The really cool thing, actually, the newcomers had never seen a cowboy in real life.
Okay.
So something just like only in American films, they said. So we came in. We were all like, they're all singing, they're all speaking Ukrainian. And we said to the chef, we're like, oh, like, we're so sorry. We come into your kitchen, wake you up, and you don't even understand what anyone's saying. And he is First Nation. He's from Samson Cree. And he goes, no, I don't know my language because it was taken away from me.
Wow.
So he's like, I understand what Russia's trying to do completely. Do not quit speaking it. And any way I can help, like, make this not happen.
He's got your back. Sing away.
Yeah. Like all those synergies between the Indigenous and Ukrainian communities for like years. It just was like the perfect start for us.
Right.
And like, you being an immigrant as well, like for us, it's weird to, even though I'm like third generation Ukrainian Canadian, it's weird to welcome people on land that isn't ours.
100%.
Yeah. So it was nice that like he kind of welcomed them in, and then they kind of learned about that. So yeah, the media also loved the story. So we went from 18 orders to $30,000 in 30 hours. So we had to shut it off because if you do the math, it's like a lot of pierogies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shut it off. We just still didn't have a kitchen. Tried to figure out where we were going to make this. We ended up at Dormition Parish, which is a church over on the West End, using their commercial kitchen. At this point, we were paying all the girls honorariums, but like we didn't have a payroll set up. We didn't even know if this business was like going to continue, if it was profitable, if it was possible. But yeah, people kept asking us, when can we buy more food? We had to like say no orders. It took us like 3 weeks. And obviously they loved the story and that's why they bought. But then they're like, oh my goodness, this is the best food I've ever had. Like, I want to keep buying.
No way. So that's the way that it evolved, and that you went from different so you've changed locations very quickly as you've grown. But I'm so curious, that first batch of pierogies, when people are telling you, Jorgia, the people want pierogies, give them pierogies.
Yeah.
What was that first, like, hey, you know what, maybe we should just whoop some up in our kitchen? Like, what was that like? That first round.
I remember like sitting there with Roman, one of our other like founders at the time. He's no longer with us, but he comes back and helps all the time. But we're like trying to figure out this like website. We're like, what pierogies should we even sell? We like messaged the newcomers and they gave me way too many. We've had to like narrow it down since. Like, no, we need to have this one.
There's no shortage, right?
Yeah. And we're like, how do we add these? Like, how many should be in a bag? We're like, wait a second, like, where do we even put them? Like, what bags do we put them in?
Bags? You need bags? You don't just sell them on a plate? Yeah.
We're like, how do we label them? Like, literally. So the first ones, I think we literally wrote on the bags with Sharpie, like just like a letter.
No way.
Like C for cheddar or something. I have I'm like looking back. I do know our bags, they were like, we're mentored by one of the co-founders of Starbucks.
Okay.
So Zev Siegel. And we showed him them one. He's like, it kind of looks like a bag of poop because it was just like this like doggy bag.
11 out of 10 marketing. Yeah.
Pierogies. Yeah. And we're like, no, but they taste really good. But the like labels would fall off in the freezer. Right. So you'd like pull your bags out and you're like, I don't know what flavor I'm cooking today. Now we have real bags and stuff. But yeah, like we had no idea. We just kind of like launched this, and then 18 orders is kind of manageable. Yeah. Right. But then all of a sudden, like $30,000, like we didn't, I think we just bought our groceries at Superstore. Like we didn't even know like wholesale club and stuff.
What is it? Yeah. and I can just, even starting out, the fact that you're selling these pierogies in like a brown bag, it's kind of like, it doesn't get any more like authentic and real than that. And I think people kind of like understand like, hey, this isn't like made in a factory. Yeah. This is as like support local as it possibly gets. Like they're selling in a brown bag. So how did you settle on the pierogi recipe that you have now? What was that process? Because there's so many different, like you mentioned, there's so many different types of pierogies. How did you shortlist everything?
Yeah. So honestly, that first day, I have no idea how that came to be. I was very much removed. But now we kind of have 4 founding girls is kind of what we call them in the kitchen. And so they each kind of have like a role. And one girl, her name's Elia, she's like quality control. So she is
professional pierogi taster.
Basically. Yes. She's a grandma. And so she has like lots of experience. She's lived lots of places in Ukraine as well as Poland. So it's kind of like all the recipes kind of get finalized by her, I would say. And like little bits and pieces go through her. So we always say like, she's the one that has the final say. So I think it was like a mixture of a little bit of everyone's recipe and also trial and error. Like I know for sure if you got our dough at Cook County and you got our dough today, it would be a little bit different.
Right.
I don't know if you could really taste it, but definitely some changes. And then our gluten-free recipe, we actually like purchased from a different newcomer here, because gluten-free was really hard. So like there's been some different things, and then still like to this day, like when I go into the kitchen today, I almost guarantee there's going to be something there that the girls are wanting me to try that's new, that they're like, oh, we want to carry this or this. So it's kind of like every day there's new recipes a little bit. But yeah, definitely changed. And even the way we now freeze them, like the way the filling, we use more local ingredients. We've like narrowed down to kind of like our top sellers. So it's been a journey.
Well, I bet. Yeah. So when you hearing about where it started versus where it is now. So you convinced them to use the Cook County kitchen. You moved into a church.
Yeah.
What's current state? So where are you working out of? Where do they find you?
Yeah. So we've had, this is our fourth home now. So
Fourth
after,
in like 2 years.
yeah, but this one's staying.
Okay.
So after the church kitchen, we also ran out of freezers at a point. So we used the sawmill, banquet, and catering freezers to do pickups. So there's this huge lineup of people, and the landlord of all the buildings kind of on the street. So his name's Scott Kelly. He owns ICOM, Butchers and Packers, and then he owns the sawmill as well, but he doesn't really work there. And he's like, what's going on out there? Like, why is there all these people here? Heard about it, and he's like, yeah, I want you guys here. And 2 weeks later, he's like, so I built you a kitchen. When are you moving in? And we're like, what?
No way.
Yeah, so that was inside of Butchers and Packers. That was out on Fort Road. But again, it was temporary. So like, I don't know how to explain it other than like they were walking back and forth a lot, because it was almost like there was two separate spots where things had to happen. And so it was great having our own space and like having consistent hours and consistent pickup, but it wasn't like fully efficient, and there was only we were limited on how much we could do there. So now you can find us on Fort Road still, but a couple doors down, and we have a full manufacturing bay. So we spent a lot of time, a lot of money. Kitchen equipment costs way more than you think. But also just like making sure that everything was efficient so we could continue to scale up. So now, if you're in there, we have a very big area where they make more products than like ever. And then we also have a little tiny cafe that's like our own. It seats about 14 people, but we get busy, so we can serve like 60 people throughout the day. Lunch. So yeah, people come in for lunch and hot food, and lunch and frozen food. And this is finally our own space out on Fort Road.
So if you're in Edmonton, check out that little cafe. Where is it located?
It's 12153 Fort Road.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been really busy, busier than we've thought. And like I can share that we already are in negotiations on 2 other spaces. Not to make the pierogies from scratch, but for the little cafes so that you can enjoy, hot, good Ukrainian food other places in the city as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to take a step back for a second, because launching a foods business isn't something they teach in school. So you went from having this free store to like basically getting the pierogi idea. How did you, I guess, from the very beginnings, how did you learn to sort of build out the infrastructure of the business? Like, at what point were you sort of going from, hey, we're just going to figure it out as we go, we're just going to make pierogies and keep selling them, and hopefully it funds what we're trying to do, versus like, hey, I need a little bit of guidance here. I don't know how to or did you know how to set up an industrial kitchen? How did you go about setting that up, and at what point did you seek out external guidance?
Yeah, so there's like like I said at the beginning, there's 3 of us. So myself, my mom, Janice, and then Roman. And so at least like each of us kind of brought like our own expertise, but none of us had fully worked in the food service business besides like serving or whatever. So yeah, a lot of it was pretending to know what you knew.
Yeah.
But also like definitely asking for help all throughout the way. We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Asking help all throughout the way. So like we were mentored pretty early on by Brad Smoliak, so one of the top chefs from the Edmonton area.
Wow.
So yeah, he helped a lot with things in the kitchen, like certain processes. He's the one that was like, oh, you have to go to this website to like get a barcode. You know that, right? And I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's obviously.
Yeah, and like getting packaging. So a lot of like online research, a lot of asking people. Scott helped us a lot build this kitchen as well. He's worked in like freezers, HVAC for a very long time. Brought in some people to, look at things. And that being said, like in our new spaces, there's a lot of things that I would do differently. I think every entrepreneur can say that like each one, comes a little bit, I don't know, easier, but like at least more.
Right.
And this one we're still bringing in lots of external people to walk through it. But yeah, I was like, we were in when we got into grocery stores, like with Italian Center Shop, they're like, oh well, you have all these bags and these barcodes or whatever, and I'm like, yep, hadn't started them yet. I was like, yeah, we just need to wait for like our first confirmed contract before we can justify paying to order all the bags. And they're like, okay. And immediately, like, I got to work and we're asking people and graphic designer and stuff. So it is, my like favorite quote right now is that we jump off a cliff and we figure out how to use the parachute on the way down. You don't learn before.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know how you feel about, just the amount of personal development and professional development that you get from actually launching a business and learning how, jumping into the deep end and learning how to swim. But I've always said, like, so I've had my company not as long as you, like 14 months now.
Yeah.
And I've learned more over the last 14 months and over the last like probably 5 years professionally.
Yeah.
One thing I've always wondered with other business owners is it's not obvious how you should be spending your time, right?
Yeah.
So no, you don't have like a boss like, okay, like here's what you have to get done today and this week. So how do you go about, prioritizing all the different things that you need to do and then deciding how to tackle that? And I guess, how do you decide how you should be spending your time when there's, every business has a million different things that you could be doing?
I wish I had like a better answer because honestly, like I'm still learning and I have like tendencies to definitely fall off sometimes. It's been very hard opening this cafe too because we get very busy almost every day. And so when I go in and plan to do work, all of a sudden I'm like helping with the customers at the front.
Right.
And so it's been, I'd say, especially hard navigating in the past. We technically had our grand opening January 31st. So in the past a month and a half. But a big part of it is like trying to like carve out time. I'm pretty lucky that in my job previously, I also kind of had like freedom to kind of pick what I wanted to work on throughout the day.
Right.
So yeah, I am utilizing summer students right now to help take some of those like lower hanging fruit things and work on them. Like if you look at our social media, I do our social media.
Okay.
It's like a bunch of posts consistent and then like crickets. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was busy those days and I forgot to do anything and didn't schedule. So I'm definitely still navigating it and trying to delegate things. But I think the biggest things for me is like, this is what I need to seeing prioritizing. So, maybe it's easier because we actually like see what the customers are wanting and needing. But yeah, like this week I was like, I'm going to get this implementation thing done. And I've been pulled every other way and have not gotten it done. And tomorrow's Friday, so we shall see.
Fair enough. Yeah, I hear that. And it's so, I guess like when you have other people that are counting on you and relying on you, your inbox is always full. There's always things that you could be doing. So one thing that I wanted to ask you a little bit about is in that first 6 months when you started really setting everything up, what were some of the biggest challenges that you encountered during that period of time?
Yeah, I think because we didn't plan to start a business, which again, honestly is probably a blessing because I'm sure you can sit at your kitchen table for how long and be like, oh, well, this month's not good to start because of XYZ. There's always a reason why it's not a good time to start. But because we literally did not plan anything, crisis response. Like I said, we didn't even know if it was profitable. But when we kind of moved into the Butchers and Packers location June, it was a bunch all at once. So like we needed payroll. I'd never done payroll. And I think the other thing that was hard about payroll is we like didn't apply for any business loans because it was just so like sporadic, I guess. And like we kind of had it established or whatever. So yeah, like I've always making sure our employees are paid is like always number one priority, but like it was, a little bit scary doing that and making sure everything was set up correctly. And yeah, I'm like, there was so much, the packaging, the labeling, figuring out, like we got AHS inspections, which, the girls are very, very like clean and diligent. So it's always been good. And I will say they're very helpful. And like, should we do this? They definitely tell you. But that's something that I had never had to deal with before. So, and then knowing that people's like livelihood is kind of depending on you at this point, like once we decided to take that step for those first 6 months where we had real employees, Like they are wanting to apply for their permanent residency here, and they they don't speak English, so like this is kind of the job. Like they really want to see this happen and successful.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like challenging to kind of take all that on between like, and just making sure. I've always said like it can't fail because there's this now team of like almost 20 counting on us, but at that time it was 6. And yeah, I think a big leap for me too was when I quit my job.
Scary step.
Yeah, you've been there, and so at the beginning I was doing both, and it just like wasn't fair to myself or to like the people around me. And I was like, I'm either in or I'm out. And yeah, so it's scary when you like are relying on yourself and you don't really have a backup plan anymore, I guess. It's like you either got to make this work. Yeah,
What's
there's
that,
like no
the
option.
expression, you burn the boats, there's no going back.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I've found that I thought was really interesting, and there's a lot of things that I didn't think were a big deal when starting the business that as I went, I'm like, oh, I probably like should, like there's just a lot of unknowns, and you just have to trust that you're going to figure them out as you go.
Yeah.
Like one that it's a silly story. Like right when I was starting, I think I've told you this story. But when we, as a recruiter, when you work at a big agency, you have a whole like back end administrative and payroll team. They just handle all that, right? Yeah. You interview people, you introduce them to your clients, you get paid. Somehow there's a bunch of stuff that happens in between, but largely you're disconnected. You have no idea what happens between like payroll and them. So when we first started the company, about 4 or 5 months, then we got a project to hire 7 people for a really large organization. And, looking at this opportunity, like, well, I'm not going to turn this down. Absolutely, it's a great opportunity. How do you payroll people? I don't know. I'll figure it out. So at that point, it was, we got the project. We started recruiting. We found 7 great people. We hired them. And then when it came time to pay them, I was like, wait, how do you do payroll? So I was like, can you just e-transfer people?
Yeah.
So there was definitely a period where it was like, I went like, okay, like, hey, first, because recruitment agencies do weekly payroll. So it's like, okay, well, hey, they did their first week. I'll just e-transfer them. Then it was like, I did one that was like, transfer limit exceeded. I was like, oh shit. What do you do from this? And then it was like, wait, no, like you have to do like EI, vacation pay, WCB. You have to do their tax return. It's like, how do I do this? What does that even mean? So then, that first week, I just reached out to everyone. Hey guys, I'm so sorry. We're having an issue with our payroll system. I promise it'll be good next week. So I'm just like, panic calling every accounting firm in the city. Can you help me set up my payroll? Can you help me set up my payroll? Sure enough, we found one that got everything set up. So that first week was a little bit bumpy. But then once you kind of hit against that guardrail, it's like, okay, lesson learned. Don't try to e-transfer people for payroll. That's not how it works. And then we figured it out from there on. But that's just an example of like one of the things that like people don't really think about. And, that's something that you kind of alluded to it when you're at the kitchen table and you're brainstorming all the different business ideas. If you think about every possible detail, it's like, well, how are we going to payroll people? Like that's the kind of thing that would stop someone from starting. Yeah. Well, how am I going to fund it? How am I just
do it?
Just do it.
No, I love that.
And your story is the epitome of that, right?
I love that story too. I like tell people, obviously not like saying you, but I'm like, yeah, you kind of have to, because would you have gotten pushed to open payroll if you weren't literally forced? Like, no, that was all you had.
Absolutely not.
Because it'd be like, oh, maybe next week or we don't need it yet, right? And so I think that's like the perfect. Sorry, I hit the light.
Oh, that's awesome.
The perfect example of like, you got to just do it.
Yeah.
And say yes. And at the end of the day, like everyone makes mistakes. Things will figure out though.
How have you felt supported by Edmonton's business community?
Yeah, we've been like super lucky. I would say by Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, like everything. Just like from the get-go, people really love the story. And even as far back as the free store, like just, I always say I don't know. We were the only donation center, from my understanding, that stayed open for as long as we did.
Right.
And I don't know if it would have survived in a city other than Edmonton. I think there's like a reason why it survived, and it's because we consistently had support. Like we we always had people trying to figure out ways to continue to make it happen. And now, you know, with this cafe, like we've had, when we ask questions to people, they help us out. When you're saying like setting up payroll, like we got, you know, that all that help. I find that Edmonton is very open to like, hey, can I buy you lunch and ask you a couple questions about this? Can you help me with XYZ? I mean, where else would literally 2 weeks later a kitchen be built for us by a different business that has no ties to Ukrainian and no real ties to us? Like, but now he says it's one of the best things he's ever done because he gave the girls this opportunity. And I think Edmonton's very big about that, like giving people the opportunities to succeed. So we're not giving like handouts of money. We're giving them jobs so that they can, you know, sustain long term. So Edmonton's been really, really great and continues to be like, I think we've catered for almost like every office building downtown.
Wow.
Like just like so supportive. And I think we have a big, you know, support local kind of mindset here. Like I think we had it even before it was cool.
Well, and actually, so what you just said is part of the reason that inspired me to, you know, bring people like you and have you share your story, because there are so many resources for entrepreneurs available in Edmonton, and the community is so supportive around new people that are coming in and trying to do big things and pursue big visions and goals like you, and organizations even like one that's been extremely helpful is the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, which is where we met. And even just from making introductions for people that you otherwise wouldn't meet on your own, and just providing a guidance and support in any way that you need. Those organizations, in my opinion, made a huge difference for me. And then Edmonton is just I find that, you know, there's so many untold success stories here, right? Like you could have people that have giant successful businesses, but they're driving an F-150. They don't have the Lamborghini.
Hey, that's what I drive.
Hey, there you go. It's a very practical. Whereas if you go to like Vancouver or Toronto, it's very like flashy.
Yes,
right?
Status.
Yeah. So here it's a little bit different. I think sometimes it falls under the radar. And even when it came to time to like start my company, there was a bit of a decision where it's like, oh, is Edmonton the right city for it? And it's such a good city to start a business. I can't even imagine doing it anywhere else, right? Trying to pay, you know, a Vancouver level rent while having to fund payroll, all your expenses until you have some money.
Maxing out your personal lines of credit.
There's no way. Impossible. So, no, I'm glad that you felt supported as well.
It's actually cool. So Zev Siegel, one of the co-founders of Starbucks, he had actually heard of Edmonton before as a good place to start businesses.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like he's from Seattle.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I know about Edmonton. So like Boston Pizza was started here. How many places have Boston Pizza now? But he had some other examples. I think Ito was started either here or Calgary, like Ito Japan.
No way.
Yeah. And just like a lot of places also, even maybe states-based companies, they'll choose Edmonton as their first place to launch their Canada store or whatever. And it's because, like it is very well known as a good place to start a business, all the way from Seattle, from someone who has started Starbucks is no small company, right?
They're no mom and pop shop.
Yeah. And so it was really cool to hear. And he's like, no, like, he's like, I know all about Edmonton starting things.
So where are you going in the next couple of years? What do you envision for yourself and for Donya's?
So if you ask my mom, she will like very confidently say we will have 300 locations in the next 10 years.
Let's go.
But our plan to do that is to franchise. Another big plan of ours is I mentioned our 4 founding girls, but we actually want all of them to have their own little Donya cafe.
Okay.
Like basically as a franchise owner, but we'll kind of help them out with that. So like immediately, like I said, 2 more spots, hopefully soon. Another 2 by the end of the year is kind of what we're hoping. We want to be in more grocery stores. So, food nitty gritty, there's some certain courses you have to take to expand to certain grocery stores that cost a lot of money. So we're trying to work out that. And then, more restaurants as well. So we currently are with kind of like a bigger restaurant chain, but we're in restaurants in and around the city, and I'd love to be so many more of them, because I
Right.
think sometimes pierogies, like when they're machine made, it's just like more college food. Like there's nothing wrong with it,
Yeah.
but we really want to say like, no, this is how it's made in Ukraine today. And like, let's bring it, like, this is one of the largest immigrations in Canadian history. So let's like share that with other restaurants and let people try it. Yeah. And then some other like collabs we're hoping to do. Yeah, just like definitely we want you to be able to find good Ukrainian food on kind of every corner. The same way you can get good pizza and get good
Yeah.
donaires. Like that wasn't always the case, right? And I think that we'll be able to get there, but lots of planning, lots of work, and just, you know, honing down. I just increased my team by 50%.
Wow.
So yeah, we're ready to pump out more products.
That's such an exciting vision. I have no doubt that you'll be able to get there, and I'm excited to see how everything unfolds for you. So now, as you're working towards that, there's quite a few different things there. Like you want to have your franchise locations get into all these different grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
I've always like felt like there aren't enough hours in a day to do all of these things. Like I wish a day had 30 hours so that you could sleep your 8 and then work and get everything you needed to done. How do you spend your days now? Like what's a typical day for you if someone were to have a camera over your shoulder? What are you doing most of the time?
Yeah, it was funny. Someone asked me the other day, like, you guys haven't started night shift yet? And I was like, no girls are on night shift
No.
yet.
Have fun staffing that shift up. I've filled night shift roles before. Oh man.
Yeah.
Tricky one.
No, I it's so dependent on the day too. Like I do try to go into the cafe. I still try to network and go to events, and then I wish I had more time just at my computer. Honestly, I feel like I'm sure you could relate. Like I don't get enough time. Like I could be there forever. So yeah, like I try to have one day a week where I like stay home and do stuff then. But it doesn't always happen. Every Thursday, I actually like still personally deliver the stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's why I drive an F-150
Yeah.
to fit a lot. So yeah, I personally deliver a lot. Our borscht is at Italian center shops.
Right.
Every Friday, so we deliver fresh on Thursday. So yeah, sometimes I spend a lot of time in my car with podcasts.
What are your favorites?
I'm not good. I can't. I'm not business. It's like it depends on who's guests. Like I actually don't like stick to a certain podcast, but if there's a guest that I like, then I kind of like go with that.
Got it.
Yeah. So like I'm a huge Grey's Anatomy fan, and like the girl that plays Meredith Grey was on Call Her Daddy, so that was my yesterday one.
That's such a common one.
Yeah. And then yeah, we I'm like trying to think. We're doing a lot of hiring, so I just hired, like I had a student interview. Today we have we're doing a story with retired teachers for like their thing. It's all over the place. It's so, I wish I had a better answer. I find that our business is very lucrative depending on the season.
Right.
Oh, actually right now for the next month,
Yeah.
I'll be working on Easter pretty much, because Easter's one of our busiest times of the year too.
So in terms of, I mean, you're doing all these different things, and you're driving everything. How do you keep yourself sharp and focused personally, right? So you like your podcast. Do you have like I guess like what do you do on the personal side to keep yourself performing at the level that you need to?
I do try to get enough sleep. Because I know I'm not good on less sleep. Like I mentioned, I still do Ukrainian dance, so it is kind of good, even though some days when like you have so much to do and you're like, oh, like I have to go to dance and I don't have time. It's good to like, I find a lot of the first things to drop off can sometimes be like physical activity or like social aspects. So it's good when it's like scheduled in and like you have to go. So I'm sure that's very helpful, and it also helps because I eat a lot of pierogies. So
and you're in very good shape. Wow.
It's good for me
Yeah.
to go to dance. Yeah, so like those things, definitely like staying social, like not just like honing in, trying to network still. I think that networking keeps you sharp, because when you're a business owner,
It
you
so
can hide.
does.
You can
Yeah.
hide forever. Yeah, and then just also like, working with the girls, they teach me stuff all the time, and they're super hard workers. So I never feel like with our team, you never feel like you're alone. I think
Right.
that's like really important. So like I really empathize also for business owners that are kind of on their own to start before you grow, because it can be very lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually so interesting that you brought up that networking events keep you sharp. And that's
Mhm.
something that I've actually always felt that way.
Mhm.
Because sometimes when you're like, networking events are kind of a unique combination of like personal and business.
Yeah.
Like, if to do well in a networking event, like, you don't generally want to be the person like just giving your card. Like, sometimes I've seen recruiters like, here's my card, are you hiring, here's my card. Like,
Yeah.
no one wants to talk to that person, so
And
it's
then
kind
you
of
don't
like
remember them.
you don't remember them. So it's kind of like a social thing and a professional thing
Mhm.
at the same time. So I've tried to go to more, because I found like in the first 6 months when I was just like in front of my computer and on the phone, I wasn't in front of people. When I went to, like, you know, dinners or events with my personal friends, I was like, how do I socialize? Oh my God, I talk to people all
Or you're
day, and like, why am I so awkward right now? I was like, well, I haven't sat in front of like another human in so
Mhm.
long, and it's just like pure work mode. Versus you're in an event, and, you know, I don't drink often, but if some people are having like wine
Yeah.
or beer or something, and they're talking about the Oilers games or whatever's going on and sharing about their business, it's just a different.
Yeah.
It really does keep you kind of like grounded and leveled. So I thought that was interesting that you brought that one up.
Well, look at what happened during COVID.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I feel like everyone had like the mental things, and like I was always like so much more tired, and I feel like less productive. And then a lot of like, you know, youth during COVID, I feel like they kind of missed out on how to like communicate, and like it's not their fault, but like it does definitely like hinder that. And so sometimes owning a business, you can almost be like in isolation,
Totally.
quarantine.
So,
So
yeah, especially when everyone's working, was like, oh my God, I'm so lonely. Yeah.
yeah.
But the fitness one as well, like, you're right, it is the first, a lot of the times the first thing that can go. But I genuinely see it as an investment in like the rest of your time,
Mhm.
because there are some days where if I don't get any sort of physical exercise, yeah, I sat in a computer for 13 hours, but I only worked for like 8. Versus
Yeah.
if I just took an hour to, you know, go
For a walk even.
pull-ups, walk,
Yeah.
or whatever, then it's like, oh, actually, like, I was
Mhm.
way more productive. So even though I worked less total hours, my
Mhm.
output was way higher.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
an interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and now that the weather's getting nicer, I think it'll help everyone's productivity too, because like you can kind of take some time outside instead of like when it's like -40. I'm like, I literally would rather be in my
It changes your
house.
changes your mood. Yeah, my fiance
Yeah,
was
yeah.
talking about that, like, because all the snow went away, and then we
Yeah.
got dumped with all this, and I was like, oh, I'm so miserable, I don't know why.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
why. Yeah. um so we've, you know, the theme of this podcast is entrepreneurship and really
Mhm.
going forward and striving to do something big, and, you know, taking that shot. If there's someone listening and they are going back and forth about, oh, I have this idea, I just don't know whether I should do it, or how to go about doing it, what advice would you have to someone like that they've wanted to be an entrepreneur, they've wanted to start their own business? What would you say to them?
Yeah, like I said, our situation is very unique, but almost like you can almost pretend like you have no choice, I guess. Like, you know, like we basically had no real choice. Like at the end of the day, the demand was there. We kept going, and very crisis response. But like, you know, pretend that there's no other option except for doing this. Like, how are you going to do it? Because at the end of the day, like if you're thinking that much about it, there really isn't another choice, because you're going to regret it. Like, and it's so much better to like try, and maybe, you know, and honestly, you're probably not going to succeed right at first. Like
Yeah.
it's and you're going to make mistakes, like absolutely, without a doubt. But like it's not life or death. You're not
Right.
going to make, you know, if your intentions are really really good, I always say, then it'll work out. Like and always, you know, make sure that you're, you know, asking people around you, and celebrate all the small wins, and the big wins. Like we definitely practice that as a team. I was in a session, I think 2 weeks ago now, about like productivity, and it was kind of specific to food processing, but honestly, like just in general. And like a big thing that teams forget to do is celebrate small wins, and focus too much
That's
on like,
so true.
you know, negatives. And even for me, we were selling out of stuff a lot.
Yeah.
And I could be like, oh, you guys aren't like doing enough, and like we need to do more, and we do need to do more, which is why we hired more. But we're like, oh my god, we were like, your guys' food is just too good. It's just too good. Everyone wants it, you know. So I think, yeah, I don't know if that's like a good answer, but I am glad that I was like pushed to this kind of option, and I think that if a lot of us had a mindset like, you know, like this has to happen, there's a gap in the community and we need to fill it. My business is going to be the one to do it. It's not a question anymore. It's like, it makes it a lot easier to just, you know, go ahead and take the leap.
And I that's so powerful what you said about like when something has to be done, like why not you, right?
Yeah.
And you hear sometimes people talk about like, well, someone should do this. They should fix this. Like, you fix it.
Yeah.
You do it. And it's so empowering because then it just I guess like the people that are like can fix these problems, like they're no different than you and I.
Yeah. Well, for you, like you worked at a recruiting firm before, so you saw the value in it. You saw the good stuff, but you probably were like, oh, what if we, you know, did it a little bit differently, or what if I did this? How would that like make an impact? And
totally.
14 months later, can you say that you think you like filled that gap?
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, like it was in terms of the brainstorming session, I'm a little embarrassed of like how long I got caught up into that, right? Because recruiting was like, I don't know, I viewed it as like my kind of boring day job. And then I would go home and like spend hours on Google Drive and like Google Documents, like brainstorming. I had like a folder, like 100+ business ideas that I spent so much time on, so many different business ideas. And then eventually it was kind of just like listening to where the demand is, like what are people saying they want, right? For you it was like, hey, do you guys make pierogies? You really should make pierogies. Please make pierogies.
Ours was like bold and highlighted. It's sometimes not that clear.
Yeah. And it was like kind of separating what do other people want versus what do I want. Like one business that I tried, and you know, it was on the path, it brought me here where I am today. But one of the businesses I tried, like I play drums, right? I love music. I've been a drummer my whole life. I spent like 6 months creating like a drums accessory business, and I put so much time and money into like this little business, and it was like when we launched it, we didn't like, no one wanted it. I was like the only person on earth that thought it was cool. But it was all about like me, like what do I want? What do I think is going to be cool versus like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a customer, right? It's a business to serve other people. What do they want? So you listen to the market, and here you are. And your story is extremely inspiring, which is why I wanted to bring you on here.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming, Jorgia. It's a pleasure hearing hearing your story.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And then just one more time, what are your socials? Where do people find you if they want to get some pierogies and learn more?
Oh yeah, so our website's donyaukraine.ca. And then you can also on the website see like our grocery stores and restaurants. Our socials are at Ukraine's Kitchen. We're located 12153 Fort Road for now, but we'll have more locations too. We'll always be there. And so we're in like at Edmonton and Calgary and kind of surrounding, and then we ship merchandise worldwide or North America wide. But yeah,
amazing. Go try their pierogies, everyone.
Thank you.